A nationwide push to count ballots by hand is gaining steam, and I'm concerned it's going to cause serious problems for the very issue it's intended to address: election integrity. As one major statewide election administrator has signed off on a plan to hand count votes, in other areas look like they may follow suit. Nevada's Secretary of State recently approved a proposal which will allow several jurisdictions in the state to count their ballots entirely by hand. The proposal was put forth after Nye County, whose top election official continues to claim Donald Trump won the 2020 election, decided to stop using Dominion voting machines based on completely unsubstantiated voter fraud claims. Now, the Secretary of State's office approved the proposal, and a number of counties in the state, including Nye County, plan to now move forward with hand counts next month. The county clerk in Nye, who held that post for 20 years, actually resigned in protest, saying, quote, "Everyone said it's not you, it's not the officials, but what people don't understand is I put my trust in those machines and how the process works." Now, this move in Nevada is likely just the beginning. Election officials in Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Florida, Colorado, New Mexico all say they're seeing increases in petitions and efforts calling for an end to electronic vote counting in favor of hand counts. And it's a troubling trend and bad for those who want votes to be counted fairly and accurately. According to the Bipartisan Policy Center, more than 90% of jurisdictions across the country use vote tabulators, either from Dominion or other companies. Only a few small municipalities count votes by hand. And there are a few important reasons for that. For one, in large population centers, the delays in tabulating election results can be staggering. I'm talking weeks or more for certain major metropolitan areas. And these days, delays will undoubtedly lead to candidates stoking baseless fears about the process. But more importantly, hand counts are just less secure and accurate than machine counts. People make mistakes. It's absurd to think that complete hand counts won't lead to infinitely more concerns, not less. And this at a time when there's already an alarming degree of doubt in the process. A new survey from Yahoo and YouGov finds only 55% of Americans believe that after all the votes are counted, the candidate who's trailing should concede. That's after any challenge and recount. That's nuts. Look, are there issues with our elections? Absolutely. But there's no credible evidence of systemic voter fraud in recent elections. But we like to deal in facts here, so let's bring in Rachel Orey, Associate Director of Elections at the Bipartisan Policy Center. She works on issues relating to election administration policy around the country. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. So you study this issue closely. Take us through some of the problems with hand counting as compared to machine counting votes.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan. So the crux of this issue is that people are calling for all hand-counted elections based on the idea that this is the gold standard of accurate results. This is frankly untrue. Hand-counted elections result in less accurate results. Humans are notoriously poor at counting. We can typically count things as many fingers as we have on our hands. When it comes to counting ballots, it is extremely difficult to get consistent, accurate results when results are being hand counted. This is particularly true in the United States because we have some of the most complex ballots in the world. We typically have dozens of different contests on our ballots. Compared to other countries that might do hand-counted elections, they're typically counting one race. They can separate them into stacks. In the United States, it is far more complex, increasing the risk that there are errors in the process. One election official we spoke with said she had 4 different teams of workers count the same ballots, and they all arrived at different results.
Wow.
Whereas tabulators are built to do these kinds of repetitive tasks.
Now, you mentioned that we know it's less reliable. How do we know?
Various academic studies have rigorously analyzed results reporting from comparing the results from tabulators against hand counts that have taken place either in an audit or in a recount. And we have been able to confirm that tabulators are more accurate than hand counts. It's also worth noting here that tabulators undergo extensive security analysis and protections before and after the election. Nevada, for example, requires that all voting equipment be tested to federal standards and be assessed by a federally accredited laboratory. Nevada also requires logic and accuracy testing of all election equipment before and after an election takes place.
Now, you've been focused specifically on Nye County, which we were talking about. What do you make of their plan and their concerns?
It's extremely concerning to have a county with 40,000 registered voters moving towards all hand-counted elections. This is precisely because not only are we risking less accurate results, but we are risking an extremely long period after the election in which we aren't certain about what the results are.
Yeah.
This is concerning because, as we saw in 2020, even when voters are warned well ahead of the election that results might take longer than usual, it still becomes ripe ground for the spread of mis and disinformation about election results.
Rachel Orey, thank you for the fact check. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.